And so covering now the topics that we've covered, we're going to now speak about Kriyas. And I mentioned them early as being a part of particularly the left-handed Tantra, but these Kriyas are also going into other aspects of the path. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that Kriyas are very significant in amplifying energy. And if we think about Kriya, we could in some ways compare it to asana, to yogasana, but these two are very, very different. But sometimes you'll see a Kriya and it might look like somebody is performing an asana. But the difference with Kriya is there's quite often a lot more going on. When we practice Kriya, there is a particular action. Sometimes we are also using mantra inside a Kriya. Sometimes these Kriyas are done in a certain succession, a certain order, so that they generate a particular energy. As I already mentioned, sometimes we're using herbs on the body when we practice Kriya to make the particular energy connections. And sometimes the Kriya is so wildly, so not an asana. It's like an action. In fact, I didn't just say a Kriya is like a movement. It is a particular action of mostly of the physical body, although you can get Kriyas that also work with pranayama and also dharana, like concentration. So yeah, these Kriyas really open and activate energy. And in traditional Tantra, whenever you do any serious work on your chakras, it is unavoidable to not do that without Kriyas, unless, of course, you immediately jump into the full Shaktipat path of the Samaya path. But for most people, if you progress through traditional Tantra, then you are going to be at some point introduced to Kriyas. And these Kriyas are really, really extraordinary. Recently, well, in the last maybe 3 years ago now, I received Diksha from my guru of a full Kriya system for the whole chakra system from Muladhara to Anahata. And these Kriyas work on all around the chakras, on all the petals of the chakras. And there are also Kriyas in Vishuddhasya and up. And basically, these Kriyas are so powerful that combined with the herbs, they had the potential to make energy connections and enliven, activate. We can even say here, activate the petals of the chakras. I'm not saying when I say activate that they become like completely and this is it, there's nothing else to do. No, it just means that we make an energy connection and the chakra system itself becomes more alive. And so just by saying that, you can understand that, wow, there must be something here. And this particular set of Kriyas that is akin with the Sharab Yoga, they are such unusual Kriyas, some of them are very basic and seem very obvious. And then others, they're just like, wow. And they just seem really unusual. Like they can be the sound of imitations of animals. They can also be particular daily actions, like seriously pulling water out of a well and how that function moves the body and how it kind of opens up the pumps within that support the Kundalini to rise. So these Kriyas are really, really something. And yeah, actually, if you go on the YouTube channel for Satya Loka, there's a nice little interview that has been done where you will see me speak a lot about these Kriyas in traditional Tantra. But for now, I just wanted to give you this introduction for you to understand. So yeah, I feel we need to also add that in traditional Tantra, there are so many processes that cannot be kind of categorized. It's quite interesting when we are in sadhana at the ashram because sometimes things are so spontaneous, and we find ourselves doing different rituals. I remember once we were in sadhana, and suddenly we were putting the Indian classical bells for the classical dance on our ankles, and performing some dance with mudra. And this was traditional Tantra. So there is also a connection there between the Tantra and the Indian classical dance. And then there are also many rituals where we have one technique that we stand in front of like a murti, a divine statue in a temple, or it can even be a yagna kund, or it can be our own self. And we will chant a particular mantra that we call prana pratishta. And we chant this specific mantra, and it enlivens that space, that murti, ourself, with a particular energy that we are repeating the mantra of. So this is some techniques. And then there are also aspects of traditional Tantra where you can go through a process of we call this bhiksha, where you for a day become a beggar, and through a ritualistic process, when you are taking your food at the serving table, you have to say a particular word in order to bring in that resonance of like being given food. So there are so many, different, I'm trying to think now as we're speaking of all the different experiences that we've had. There are also rituals, for example, involving cows, because in India, cows are very holy animals. And we have done rituals where we've had to climb underneath a calf in order of like a kind of like birthing process, you know? And so it might sound totally wild, but this is the Tantra. It's interacting and using the life and embracing the life and honoring the life. Of course, before we did this with the calf, we did puja on the calf and honored the divinity in the calf. And let me just try to think now, because I'm flowing with all these memories that are coming back. Okay, now I put myself on the spot. It will come as we're speaking, yeah. So there are so many rituals. This is what needs to be said. And sometimes these rituals are even spontaneous, you know, because Tantra is an alive body, and it's not necessarily a treasure of anybody. We say traditional Tantra because, there are some of these rituals that have been passed down thousands of years, and they are still intact today. But then at the same time, there are certain changes that sometimes happens. For example, you're doing a particular ritual and the rains change, or the nature changes. Or we've had it before, we make a yantra and the monkeys get into the space and completely do what they want to do with the yantra. And then something has to change. And it's not because our ego has decided, okay, now I want to do this with the ritual. No, the nature interacts with what you're doing. So then there is an adaptation. And there can be an amazing kind of revelation of learning through that, through adapting and seeing how the energy directs the ritual or the process that we're doing. So it's really important to have an openness in traditional Tantra and not to put things in boxes. If you try to come to this path and you like things very, I need to know what's happening, I need to know what I'm going to be eating at that meal and at this time, then in many ways the Tantra isn't for you. We have to approach it with a very big openness and spontaneity, but at the same time really respecting the tradition, because the tradition has been set in order to make sure that the Tantra is safe. Because we can also say that in many practices, like yoga, it's like a low volume energy. It's a high volume energy compared to most things in the world. But in the world of energy and Tantra, it's like if we do a yogasana session, 2 hours of yogasana, it's like we are plugging into the light of maybe 240 volts. Okay, this is completely theoretical, but if you stay with me, we can use this. Now, if we come to the Tantra and we start to apply mantra and kriyas and all of these things using the yagna, then it's like plugging into a higher voltage of energy, especially if some of those practices go more into the rajasic or even tamasic side of things. And so what has happened, tradition is so important because it is holding on to certain safety protocols, we could say, certain mantras that help to purify the energy, certain mantras that bring in supportive energy for these big processes. And we need that guidance. Quite honestly, and you see it a lot, there's so many mantras in books nowadays, and people are picking up and like, oh, they're great. These are mantras for the Mahavidyas, you know, and this is great. No, actually, it isn't great. 2 reasons. Anybody who knows would only put a mantra in a book with locks in that mantra. So they would either add a mantra or take a mantra out, maybe 1 or 2, I don't know. But, you know, they put a lock in. And it's only when you are really a master in mantra can you look at these and see where it needs the key. Because these mantras, they're like codes to connect with the energy. And so it really is like, you need to know what is the key, what is the code word here. And the other side of this is if somebody does just put any mantra in a book and they don't think about this, I really hope that this doesn't happen, but you never know in this kind of like flood of spirituality nowadays, that somebody puts the full mantra, a mantra that doesn't have locks. How do you know that that mantra is good for your Kundalini? I'm going to keep using the word Mahavidya because it's become such a big thirst for people to learn about the Mahavidyas, but nobody, quite frankly, has a clue of what it really means to work with the Mahavidyas. Traditionally, in some aspects of Tantra, you work with one Mahavidya for your whole life. Even some tantrics are born into a family and the whole family only be with one Mahavidya. A Mahavidya is the great wisdom goddesses. They are the great wisdoms of the universe. They're like cosmic powers that are personified actually in forms of goddesses. And ultimately, they are really, really strong cosmic powers that are coming from Shiva, that are coming from the source of consciousness. So they're almost like, we could say, the Shakti of Shiva. And they are very powerful and are not something just to kind of explore for some fun. If you go into this, it's really important to have correct guidance. Of course, you can experience it in a light-hearted way. But when you start to use mantras, this is when we don't want to mess with this. Because I repeat, if this mantra doesn't fit your Kundalini and you need a certain amount of purification, or it doesn't work for your energy field at this time, it can be more problematic than helpful. Yeah.